ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Prem Shikoho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gauda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyam Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mathura Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Gangamai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Hari Hari Bol. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vikas Saraswati Devi Gaudavani Prashalini Nirvishesha Srimavadi Paschita Deshatari Name Namo Mahabharati Krishna Prem Padaya Take Krishna Govinda and Namo Namah Hare Krishna. Well, Jai. Okay. Hare Krishna devotees. We'll start with the
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Good morning, dear devotees in the temple and across the world on Zoom. Today we will be studying Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 2, Verse 36. And we will also be discussing and acknowledging the appearance of Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet in the Western world on this day, I believe 58 years ago on this day. So we'll start by chanting the verse, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chapter 2, Canto 2, Verse 36. Let me pull it up here on my side. Hasmat sarvatmana rajan. Rajan. Hari sarvatra sarvada. Srotvaya kritvayascha.
Srutavya kirtitavyascha.
Smartavyo bhagavan rimnam.
Smartavyo bhagavan rinam.
Tasmat sarvatmana rajan.
Tasmat sarvatmana.
Hari sarvatra sarvada.
Hari sarvatra sarvada.
Shrotavya kritivyascha.
Shrutavya kirtitavyascha.
Smartavyo bhagavan rimnam.
Smartavyo bhagavan rinam.
Tasmat sarvatmana rajan.
Tasmat sarvatmana rajan.
Hari sarvatra sarvada.
Hari sarvatra sarvada.
Shrotavya kirtitavyascha.
Shrotavya kirtitavyascha.
Smartavyo bhagavan rinam.
Smartavyo bhagavan rinam.
Devotees, please chant on Zoom. We'll do here after.
Tasmat sarvatmana rajan.
Tasmat sarvatmana rajan.
Hari sarvatra sarvada.
Hari sarvatra sarvada.
Srotavya kirtitavyascha.
Shrotavya kirtitavyascha.
Smartavyo bhagavan rinam.
Smartavyo bhagavan rinam.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
तस्मात् सर्वात्मना राजन्
Tasmat Sarvatmanajan.
हरि सर्वत्र सर्वदा
Hari Sarvatra Sarvada
श्रोतव्य कीर्तितव्यश्च
Tavya Kirtitavyascha
स्मर्तव्यो भगवान् नृणाम्
Smartavyo Bhagavan
तस्मात् सर्वात्मना राजन्
Tasmat Sarvatmanarajan
हरि सर्वात्म सर्वदा
Hi Sarvatra Sarvada
श्रोत्रव्य कीर्तितव्यश्च
Uttavya Kirtitavyascha
स्मार्तव्यो भगवान् नृणाम्
Uttavya Bhagavan Nrinam.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else?
Hare Krishna. Tasmat sarvatmana rajan hari sarvartha sarvada srotavya kirti tavyascha smartavya bhagwan nrinam. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
तस्मात् सर्वात्मना राजन् हरिः सर्वत्र सर्वदा श्रोतव्या कीर्तितव्यश्च स्मर्तव्यो भगवान् नृणाम्
तस्मात् सर्वात्मना राजन् हरिः सर्वत्र सर्वदा श्रोतव्य कीर्तितव्यश्च स्मर्तव्यो भगवान् नृणाम्.
Yay. You're not going to do it. Okay. Okay, we'll do the word for word now. Tasmat,
Not
therefore.
therefore.
Sarva,
Sarva
all.
all.
Atmana,
Atmana
soul.
so
Rajan, O king.
okay.
Hari,
Hari
the Lord.
the Lord.
Sarvatra,
Sarvata
everywhere.
everywhere.
Sarvada,
Sarvada
always.
always.
Shrotavaya,
Uttavaya
must be heard.
must be heard.
Kirtitavya,
Kirtitavya
glorified.
glorified.
Cha,
Cha
also.
also
Smartavya,
Smartavya
be remembered. Bhagavan,
Bhagavan
the personality of Godhead.
personality of God.
Nirnam,
Nrinam
by the human being.
by the human being.
Translation. O king, it is therefore essential that every human being hear about, glorify, and remember the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, always and everywhere. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Srila Shukadev Goswami begins this verse with the word tasmat, or therefore, because in the previous verse, he has already explained that there is no auspicious means for salvation other than the sublime process of bhakti yoga. The bhakti yoga process is practiced by the devotees in different methods, like hearing, chanting, remembering, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, worshiping, praying, rendering service in love, becoming friendly, and offering all that one may possess. All 9 methods are bona fide methods, and either all of them, some of them, or even one of them can bring about the desired result for the sincere devotee. But out of all the 9 different methods, the first one, namely hearing, is the most important function in the process of bhakti yoga. Without hearing sufficiently and properly, no one can make any progress by any of the methods of practice. And for hearing only, all the Vedic literatures are there, compiled by authorized persons like Vyasadeva, who is the powerful incarnation of Godhead. And since it has been ascertained that the Lord is the supersoul of everything, he should therefore be heard and glorified everywhere and always. That is the special duty of the human being. When the human being gives up the process of hearing about the all-pervading personality of Godhead, he becomes victim to hearing rubbish transmitted by man-made machines. Machinery is not bad because through the machine, one can take advantage of hearing about the Lord. But because machinery is used for the ulterior purposes, it is creating rapid degradation in the standard of human civilization. It is said here that it is incumbent upon the human being to hear because the scriptures like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam are made for that purpose. Living beings other than human beings have no ability to hear such Vedic literatures. If human society gives itself to the process of hearing Vedic literatures, it will not become a victim to the impious sounds vibrated by impious men who degrade the standard of total society. Hearing is solidified by the process of chanting. One who has perfectly heard from the perfect source becomes convinced about the all-pervading personality of Godhead, and thus becomes enthusiastic in glorifying the Lord. All the great acharyas, like Ramanujacharya, Madhva, Chaitanya, Sarasvati Thakur, or even in other countries, Muhammad, Christ, and others, have all extensively glorified the Lord by chanting always and in every place. Because the Lord is all pervading, it is essential to glorify him always. Sorry, 1 second. Just have a. Go ahead, Prabhu. Go ahead. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. He's going to go. Okay. It is essential to glorify him always and everywhere. In the process of glorifying the Lord, there should be no restrictions of time and space. This is called Sanatana Dharma or Bhagavat Dharma. Sanatana means eternal, always and everywhere. Bhagavat means pertaining to Bhagavan, the Lord. The Lord is the master of all time and space, and therefore the Lord's holy name must be heard, glorified, and remembered everywhere in the world. That will bring about the desired peace and prosperity so eagerly awaited by the people of the world. The word cha includes all the remaining processes or methods of bhakti yoga, as mentioned above. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So before I begin, I would just like to ask the permission from the advanced devotees and Vaishnavas here in the assembly and across the whole universe to please forgive any offenses and give me your blessings in this talk. So here we have a very wonderful verse that is perfectly aligned with this auspicious day of Srila Prabhupada arriving in the United States. So today we will have a bit of a discussion about this verse specifically and how it connects with the intersection of the universal forces in Srila Prabhupada coming to the United States to ultimately fulfill the prophecy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in spreading the holy name of Krishna around the globe. So just to kind of touch base on where we are in the Srimad Bhagavatam, we're rounding out this chapter about to end. And as we see, we're just a few verses away from the very end of it. And this is actually the conclusion of the question. Well, not so much the conclusion, but the point where Shukadeva Goswami actually gives the direct answer to the question that Parikshit asked. Actually, in my last class that I gave here, there was a similar kind of direction, but the question that Parikshit had asked at the end of the first canto, that he asked, does anyone remember specifically what that question was? That Parikshit asks at the end of the first canto. Well, luckily I have it here. So Parikshit is, of course, sitting at, on the Ganges. There's a whole host of, highly advanced spiritualists there. And we know that he's been cursed to die in 7 days. And he's come to try to understand what it is that he should be doing as someone who is about to die. And the specific question that he says, the verse, which is 119:37, he says, Parikshit says, you are the spiritual master of great saints and devotees. He says this to Shukadeva. I am therefore begging you to show the way of perfection for all persons, and especially for one who is about to die. So the question here is, what is the way of perfection? And then we begin the second canto, and that's where Shukadeva Goswami comes in and he starts to give the answer. And actually this verse that we're on today, 36, is the conclusion, in the sense that the beginning of the verse is the word tasmat, which is interesting. This kind of point in language where you have this therefore, this tasmat, and in Sanskrit it's used very much, and we see that even Srila Prabhupada in his lectures and his devotees and disciples also are using this kind of conversational mechanism to come to the conclusion of the point, which is tasmat, therefore, the conclusion. Therefore, it is essential. Shukadeva Goswami has explained and described what is the basis for the Lord in the heart. But now we're coming to this point. It is therefore essential that every human being hear about, glorify, and remember the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, always and everywhere. Therefore, and as Srila Prabhupada mentions in this purport here, he's just, Shukadeva Goswami begins this verse with the word tasma, or therefore, because in the previous verse he has already explained that there is no auspicious means for salvation other than the sublime process of bhakti yoga. So we're in bhakti yoga, but what is the highest point of bhakti yoga? What is the one piece of bhakti yoga amongst all others that is the linchpin or the most important point? And that is what we're getting in this verse, which is hear about, glorify, and remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead, always and everywhere. And it's interesting because I don't want to foreshadow or too much, but in a few verses at the beginning of the third chapter, what Shukadeva Goswami says here is, now I have answered the question for you. What else do you want to know? Basically, is what he's saying. So in the third chapter of this, he starts out, Shukadeva Goswami starts out by saying, you've inquired for me as to the duty of the intelligent man who is at the threshold of death, so I've answered you. So basically what we've got is the answer to the question of how to gain perfection. And then we have in this verse that we're looking at today, the conclusion of that answer, glorifying the Supreme Lord. It's interesting to note in this verse that in the purport to the verse, that Srila Prabhupada mentions that the actual chanting the holy name of the Lord is how does he put it? Because the Lord is all pervading. He mentions that the chanting of the holy name of the Lord is the actual foundation, or what holds it together. So we're all in a very fortunate position, those of us that are in this assembly and listening to this either online or in the temple, because somehow or other we've come to the point of the recognition of the importance of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam and coming in contact with this knowledge and wisdom, so that we can actually attain the perfection of human life and utilize this human form of life for what it is meant for, which is to gain a realization and connection of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Now, we have this opportunity because of one man's causeless mercy. Now, that man, as we know, is Srila Prabhupada. And today, 58 years ago, Srila Prabhupada came to the United States after a very long and arduous journey on the steamship named the Jaladuta. So this Jaladuta carried over the most arguably, I mean, not arguably to anyone in this assembly, but, the most important human being to have ever entered the borders of the United States. Why? Because he's actually brought us the true path for how we can attain that which we are all seeking. And just to kind of touch back into the purport here, we see that our society, and especially American society, is founded and based on the principles of being the enjoyer and being the one in control and being the one who is going to attain happiness. It's baked into our Constitution. It's baked into the American psyche, which is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Of course, it has to be the pursuit of happiness, because the only thing we get in the United States or modern world in general is the pursuit of happiness, because happiness actually is very elusive, the actual essence of what happiness is. So all we can really say is we're going after happiness, because the equation that we have in the modern, let's just say American culture, is that this body, this physical body, is a means of enjoyment. And that we are able to, by hook or crook, make merry with this body. There's no life after death. And we can do the best we can to enjoy what we have with this physical body. And we can use the senses, and the senses are just objects of, our minds. Whatever our mind can conceive, we can achieve. And if we achieve it, we will ultimately be happy and find what we are seeking. Although we see, if we look with an objective eye in the American society, that people are not finding this happiness that they're seeking after. So what they're doing is they're trying to make one effort in another effort. They're going to one political party to another political party. They're going after this sexual orientation to that sexual orientation, to this type of diet, to that type of diet, changing as the wind blows. Ultimately, with no real guidance or direction other than their own mental speculation, trying to make up another plan for material enjoyment. And what we see now, one other piece to that, which is here in the purport, is that the basis for this in the American society is that we are the greatest society that has ever lived on this planet. Why are we the greatest? Because we have produced such wonderful technological advancements. Look at our prowess. Look at our great companies. Look at our Apple. Look at our IBMs and our Microsofts. And look at how much wondrous activities we can create with our computers and our televisions and our sound creating systems. Now, what Srila Prabhupada has so wonderfully given us in this purport here is that actually all of these technological advancements that we are so proud of in America and across the modern world are just mechanisms to create degradation of society without because in and of themselves, these technological advancements and these sound creating machines, this camera that I'm talking on, this computer we're working over, these phones we use, in and of themselves, they're not bad. But when they're used by, as Prabhupada puts it, impious men to expel impious sounds, then it creates the degradation of society. One with an objective eye and someone who has come to the point of some understanding and knowledge of the spiritual dimension of life can easily evaluate this as a factual statement from an objective standpoint. We can see that the degradation of society is being rapidly progressed. Now, Prabhupada wrote this canto in the second verse, this canto somewhere in the maybe late 60s or early 70s. I'm not sure exactly when, but even at this point, Prabhupada was making the mention that it's these, just looking at this, it is creating rapid degradation in the standard of human civilization. This machinery is used for ulterior purposes. This was in the late 60s. Now, imagine this technology that we have now, this rapid degradation. Ultimately, what is it because of? It is because these devices and this sound is being uttered without a connection to the real purpose of life and the understanding of the spiritual dimension and domain that is our actual birthright. And this is what Srila Prabhupada came so mercifully to deliver to us in America. And in his transcendental vision and transcendental knowledge, Srila Prabhupada was in India. He was working very hard under the direction of his guru to compile the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. He was in Vrindavan. He was writing and producing these Srimad Bhagavatam, recognizing that his goal was to make it to America, and to make it to America so that he could influence the entire world after America had taken to this Krishna consciousness. After those, in his view, he was thinking that when he was in India, he was going to connect with the intellectuals and the higher upper echelons of American society. But Krishna had another plan when he got here, as we know. So Prabhupada is in India, but he can recognize from his transcendental vision that to come to America, even though it was a very difficult journey, and he was a penniless monk in at that point a completely obscure area of the world in relation to global politics, very poor area, materially speaking, and that he knew that he was going to have to make that endeavor one way or another to come to America to deliver this message of Srimad Bhagavatam, which ultimately is the basis, which all culminates. We could essentially just take the entire philosophy of everything that's in the Vedas and boil it down to this one verse, and recognize that this verse that we're looking at today is really the essence of what got Srila Prabhupada on that ship and brought him here, which is because he realized what the ultimate goal of human life was, and he wanted to share that with the world, or he was destined, he was ordered to share that with the world, which is that the basis is to glorify and remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Srila Prabhupada recognizes that, and through a series of what seemed to be inconceivable events in relation to how all of the pieces came together for Srila Prabhupada to come here, Srila Prabhupada was able to board the steamship Jaladuta with a free ticket from the owner or the manager of that ship. Now, there's a few interesting points that I was, when I was doing some research for today's class, I was looking into the specific details that led to Srila Prabhupada actually getting the ticket. Because one thing that I was curious about is, like, how did Srila Prabhupada end up with a sponsor in the United States? Because to go from India to the United States, even if you had a ticket at that time, it wasn't like you could just get on the ship and enter into the United States. There had to be you had to have some kind of sponsor on the other side. And on the other side, there had to be an understanding and a lot of effort that was taken from those in the United States to be the sponsor for the person who was coming from India. So I put a link to an ISKCON Desire Tree article that was written, and it's in the chat box, and we don't necessarily, if anyone wants to read it, you can go through and just meditate on this. This is actually pulled from the Lila Marita, but this whole point where Srila Prabhupada, when he was looking to come to the United States, what happened is he met, in regards to getting a sponsor to coming to the United States and how that all played out, it's very, very interesting in relation to how it played out. And I just want to pull it up on the document that I have here. And okay, so basically, I'm just going to read a little bit from this. And so basically, there was a man by the name of, just let me pull it up. Just bear with me for a second here. Yeah, Agarwal. Okay, so Prabhupada has, at this point in India, Prabhupada knows that he wants to come to the United States. He has his Srimad Bhagavatams, and he has someone that may be willing to give him the passage to New York. And so in passing, Prabhupada meets Mr. Agarwal, a Mathura businessman. And he mentions to him in passing. So he just meets him, mentions to him in passing, as he did to almost everyone he met. I'm reading from this document here, but that he wanted to go to the West. So he tells this man in passing, like he does to everyone, he wants to go to the West. And although Agarwal had only known Bhaktivedanta Swami for only a few minutes, he volunteered to try to get him a sponsor in America. It was something that Mr. Agarwal had done a number of times. And when he met a sadhu who mentioned something about going abroad to teach Hindu culture, he would ask his son Gopal, an engineer in Pennsylvania, to send back a sponsorship form. When Mr. Agarwal volunteered to help in this way, Bhaktivedanta Swami urged him to please do so. Now imagine this at this point. So like Prabhupada mentions it, now he starts to see this kind of this glimmer of hope here. So at this point, so Srila Prabhupada, here's a quote from Srila Prabhupada in relation to this. I didn't say anything serious to Mr. Agarwal, but perhaps he took it very seriously. So I asked him, well, why don't you ask your son Gopal to sponsor so that I can go there? I want to preach there. So then, all right, so as we go on, but Bhaktivedanta Swami knew he could not simply dream of going to the West. He needed money. And in March 1965, he made another visit to Bombay, attempting to sell his books. Again, he stayed at the free Dharmashala Premiktir, but finding customers was difficult. So Srila Prabhupada was trying to go sell his books. He couldn't find customers in India. He met Paramananda Bhagwani, a librarian at Jai Hind College, who purchased books for the college library and then escorted Bhaktivedanta Swami to a few likely outlets. So now it goes into a little bit about this. Now, then Prabhupada returns back to Delhi, pursuing the usual avenues of book selling and looking for whatever opportunity might arise. And to his surprise, he was contacted by the Ministry of External Affairs and informed that his no objection certificate for going to the US was ready. Since he had not instigated any proceedings for leaving the country, Bhaktivedanta Swami had to inquire from the ministry about what had happened. So it just happened for him. They showed him the statutory declaration form signed by Mr. Gopal Agarwal of Butler, Pennsylvania. Mr. Agarwal solemnly declared that he would bear the expenses of Bhaktivedanta Swami during his stay in the US. Srila Prabhupada, whatever the correspondence was there between father and son, I did not know. This is Srila Prabhupada saying this. Whatever the correspondence was there between the father and son, I did not know. I simply asked him, why don't you ask your son Gopal to sponsor? So he said, I simply asked him, why don't you sponsor? And now after 3 or 4 months, the no objection certificate was sent from the Indian consulate in New York to me. He had already sponsored my arrival there for 1 month. And all of a sudden I got the paper. So now, later on, it was explained at his father's request, Gopal Agarwal had done as he had done for several other sadhus, none of whom had ever gone to America. It was just a formality, something to satisfy his father. Gopal had requested a form from the Indian consulate in New York, obtained a statement from his employer certifying the monthly salary, gotten a letter from his bank showing his balance as of 1965, and had the form notarized. It had been stamped and approved in New York and sent to Delhi. Now Bhaktivedanta Swami had a sponsor, but he still needed a passport, visa, P-form, and travel fare. So this one piece alone, right? So we see this in passing. Srila Prabhupada meets this, Mathura businessman, says, hey, I'm trying to go to America. Can you help me? Sure. He mentions it to his son. His son then has to go through all of this effort in the United States, verification of employer, notarization, then submit all of these documents for this man, who ends up being, of course, Srila Prabhupada. And all this documentation just kind of smooths its way through. This is what we could call, as in American terminology, divine intervention. Right. And I think all of us that have come to Krishna consciousness have our own experience in one way or another of what we could call divine intervention. And this is the unseen hand of God, which Krishna, which guides us and directs us in our life and somehow clears the path for us so that we can come closer to Krishna. Because ultimately, Krishna wants us to come close to him because he is our supreme father. And just like any father would want their children to come closer to them that have strayed away, he's giving us the opportunity and giving us some direction and guidance. Personally, in my own life, I can say certainly there was divine intervention in relation to my ability to come closer to Krishna consciousness and make my attempts in practicing and following Srila Prabhupada. There was multiple points in my life where I had come in contact with devotees just as a young boy and as a teenager that ultimately laid the foundation for me to then come later in life and receive Srila Prabhupada's books, practically what seems to be by an impossible chance. But ultimately, we can see, just like Srila Prabhupada had the path laid out for him by Krishna, and with that sincere effort and that sincere endeavor by the devotee, Krishna opens up the pathway for us to actually make progress in Krishna consciousness. And of course, Srila Prabhupada is at such a extremely high level from where I myself is at. I mean, it's not even comparable. But Srila Prabhupada had to go through many different challenges and efforts to try to, and what seemed to be difficulties, to make his way to the United States and to fulfill the order of his guru. Because we also can understand that the active principle in Krishna consciousness or the active principle in Bhakti Yoga is pleasing the guru, is serving the devotees, serving the guru, so that then one can gain and attain the mercy of Krishna. And that is ultimately what Srila Prabhupada was making the attempt to do in his efforts. And no matter what happened, whether it was success or failure from the material standpoint, because Srila Prabhupada was doing everything that he possibly could to fulfill the order of his guru, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, which was go to the West and preach this Krishna consciousness. And also, if you ever get money, print books. What did Srila Prabhupada do? As soon as he didn't even have any money, but what did he do? He printed books. He created, I mean, imagine the endeavor that it takes to write with a typewriter the Srimad Bhagavatam, get it printed, go, I mean, at this point in time in India, like to go and get a 3-volume Srimad Bhagavatam typed out and printed, it seems like an impossibility, especially when you have no funding to do it whatsoever. I mean, so every piece, every step along the way, very interesting in relation to how the sponsor played out. And then, of course, it goes on and it goes on because Srila Prabhupada then ends up getting the steamship ticket, and he ends up coming across the Atlantic Ocean on the Jaladuta, having heart attacks on the ship, making his way across, and then finally getting to America. And even, getting to America was just the beginning, right? And then how many, impossible circumstances had to unfold for the Hare Krishna movement as we know it today to revolutionize the world in the way that it has and that it continues to do. We can't even, I mean, as the glories of Krishna cannot be expressed, the glories of Srila Prabhupada in that same way, even if we had, unlimited mouths and heads like Ananta Shesh to just spout out glories of Srila Prabhupada's, I guess you could say, pastimes, we don't have the ability to do so because they are so vast and expansive. It's actually like about 3 or 4 years ago on this date, I was fortunate enough to go, I was in Boston and I was at the Boston Temple doing some book distribution. And there was like a festival at the pier that Srila Prabhupada actually came to on the Jaladuta. So there was, I don't know, maybe about 20 of us devotees went there early in the morning and did kirtan on this day at that pier where Srila Prabhupada came. Now it's like an industrial, it's not so much industrial, but it's more like, I mean, it's obviously still a pier, but it's more, there's like restaurants and stuff there. But it was very interesting and inspiring to go to that point and see that it's still there. And there's, devotees recognizing and seeing that this day is a very holy day. Why is this such a holy day? Because Srila Prabhupada came to the United States to give us this message. And what is this message? This message is the message of what we're hearing in this verse today, that the ultimate goal of human life is to glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead in every circumstance, everywhere around the world. So that's another point that's made in this purport, and that we can understand from this verse, is that this is not just like some religion. This is not Hinduism. This is not Christianity. This is not, Buddhism or whatever. It is the Sanatana Dharma. It is the essential essence of human, of the soul, of the jiva. It is the core of what and who we really are. And depending on time, place, and circumstance, as Prabhupada mentions in the purport, it can be, Jesus, Allah, or they're glorifying the name of God. So what our purpose is and our goal is to attain the perfection of life that Srila Prabhupada brought to us and revolutionized our ability to actually understand the real purpose of human life at a personal level and ultimately at a societal level. Because as we see, and what Prabhupada mentions in this purport, we can't at a societal level make any real changes. We can't, all we're doing, if we're not basing the society on the real function of human life, and we're trying to shift the byproduct, shift the suffering that we're getting from the lack of knowledge, trying to fix the problem, we're just shifting the weight from one place to another. But ultimately that pain comes no matter what, because until we have at the core of our society, the true purpose of human life from the leadership down, there will be suffering in human society. So to think that, and this is the revolutionary aspect of what Srila Prabhupada brought in the Hare Krishna movement. Revolution, actually, the word comes from the Latin word like to revolve, even like revolution, like, you're revolving around something. Revolution means to come back to the point that you were once at. So what is the point? We're actually the revolution to come back to Godhead, back to the true essence of who and what we really are, so that we can actually have peace and happiness in human society. And from that peace, so Srila Prabhupada's mission in coming to the United States was not to create another religion. Srila Prabhupada's mission was not to create a sectarian group. Srila Prabhupada's mission was which is the mission of the Acharyas, which is the message of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the same for all people, not just one group. Everyone around the entire world at all times is the message of who we really are. We are not this body, we are the spirit soul. And as the spirit soul has a relationship with the supreme soul. And as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Jiver Sarup Hoy Krishna Nitya Das. What is that? Jiver, the Jiva, Jiver, Sarup. What's the Sarup? Like water is wet, fire is hot and light. It's the Sarup of the soul. Jiver Sarup Hoy, the kind of this, what is it? Krishna Nitya Das, to be the eternal servant of Krishna. Our position, our eternal position as a Jiva, all jivas, is to be a servant of the Supreme Lord. And the means for attaining that recognition and the way to purify ourselves and the ultimate perfection of human life is to glorify, hear about, and chant the holy names of the Lord in whatever circumstance we find ourselves in at all times. And we have this opportunity in this human form of life, specifically within this group that we're in right now. We've come to this fortunate position to be able to glorify the Supreme Lord from the Srimad Bhagavatam. And I have the very fortunate position to be able to give whatever meager realizations I have in relation to this. And there's so many opportunities to do this. We, especially given the fact that we have the internet at our disposal, we can follow Srila Prabhupada and listen to Srila Prabhupada. And also, since we have connection to the Philadelphia ISKCON Center and Temple here in Philadelphia, there's so many opportunities to glorify the Lord in direct, person here, Sri Radhashari Bihari, and then also going out and doing Harinam on the streets, which is being the flag is being carried here by our Murari Gupta Prabhu and his wife coming to Philadelphia to establish this so selflessly. And the devotees are going out on the street to chant Hare Krishna, which from what I can see in the beginning of the movement when Srila Prabhupada was here, and of course, not to say that it's not part of the movement now, but it was such an important part of what Srila Prabhupada wanted us to do, which is to go out, preach this message, glorify the Lord, chant Hare Krishna on the streets so that others can be purified and others can actually get connection to this message and attain the highest perfection of life. So to kind of round out this, I would just like to read the poem that Srila Prabhupada wrote. And as he arrived here in the United States, and it's relatively brief, but it is a wonderful picture of where Srila Prabhupada's heart and mind was at, having taken the journey across the ocean and to begin the fulfillment of the prophecy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, not necessarily begin, but, further it on the shores of the United States. And the verse goes as follows. So we'll start. This poem was a prayer to Lord Krishna, and it is filled with Prabhupada's devotional confidence in the mission that he had undertaken on behalf of his spiritual master. An English translation of the opening stanzas as follows. I emphatically say to you, so we're starting the poem. I emphatically say to you, O brothers, you will obtain your good fortune from the Supreme Lord Krishna only when Srimati Radharani becomes pleased with you. Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who is very dear to Lord Gauranga, the son of Mother Sachi, is unparalleled in his service to the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. He is that great saintly spiritual master who bestows intense devotion to Krishna at different places throughout the world. By his strong desire, the holy name of Lord Gauranga will spread throughout all the countries of the Western world, in all the cities, towns, and villages on the earth, from all the oceans, seas, rivers, and streams. Everyone will chant the holy name of Krishna. As the vast mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu conquers all directions, a flood of transcendental ecstasy will certainly cover the land. When all the sinful, miserable living entities become happy, the Vaishnav's desires is then fulfilled. So this is one piece of a poem, and then the poem ends. Today, that remembrance of you come to me in a very nice way, because I have a great longing. I called to you. I am your eternal servant, and therefore I desire your association so much, O Lord Krishna. Except for you, there is no means of success. So this here we have Srila Prabhupada glorifying his spiritual master, making a recognition that this was the mission of his spiritual master, to come to this land of Malechas and Yavanas and sinful people, that to deliver and fulfill this prophecy, and it has been decreed that it will take place. So we can be fortunate in the opportunity to align ourselves with this direction and movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu through the direction and understanding of our Guru and Srila Prabhupada. And thank you very much for coming to this class this morning. And if there's any questions or thoughts on what I've said, any objections, please share them now, or any reflections that anyone has on Srila Prabhupada, or something that you'd like to say in relation to the verse itself. Thank you. First, I'll give the devotees in the temple a chance to say something, and then I'll come to the devotees on the Zoom. Is there anyone that would like to share anything? No? Okay. All right, is anyone on Zoom? Yes, Vishnugoda Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
The interesting point that when Srila Prabhupada was asked to give an example of enthusiasm, there's the 6 things: utsahan, nishchaya, dharya, tata karma, pravartana, janasangas, sangatyaga, satovrite. Sorry. So what do you think he gave as an example for enthusiasm? He often gave the example that when he was 70 years old, he came to the United States. That was enthusiasm under the order of his spiritual master. I just thought that's interesting, as we observed today. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Yes, and then what I would think about that is like, so what makes that enthusiasm, right? Because at that age, of course, one may feel like tired, or maybe that their time is over, right? So like persevere through difficulties, regardless of the circumstances, to try to fulfill the order or the direction that we have. I can see how that's, the enthusiasm. I think there's like somehow enthusiasm is tied to like the idea of like enthused, like with spirit somehow, like enthusiasm is like having, like being connected to spirit. So anyways, Jai, thank you very much, Vishnugoda Prabhu. Anyone else? So I will say, if just a shameless plug, if anyone would like to celebrate this auspicious day, it's kind of like, Christmas or something like that today for the Vaishnavas, in the sense that, we have an appearance of a great saint on our shores. We will be going out at Rittenhouse Square, as we do mostly each day, headed by Murari Gupta Prabhu, to chant the holy name. So we'll be there. There will be devotees there between 11 and 2 o'clock, 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. today. The weather seems like it's relatively nice. We can take advantage of this weather. It's not too hot, not too cold, and use whatever devices we have to be our vocal cords and everything else to fulfill this verse. So we'll be out there today, 11 to 2. At the entrance of 18th and Walnut. So if you can make it, great. If not, also, we understand we all have duties that we have to take care of in this life. So please just do your best to meditate on Srila Prabhupada and maybe try to, chant Hare Krishna a little bit today, some way or another. So thank you very much. Panchakopatripyascha kripasindhubhya sanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo.
Thank you very much. Prabhu.
Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you, Prabhu, for
Jai.
wonderful class.
Thank you.
Jai.
Jai.
Jai.